What's going on, guys? This is Zaccari, and before I get into today's topic, I just want to take a moment and address the bombing that recently took place at the Manchester Arena, the one with Ariana Grande, for you younger folks. I was originally going to make this video yesterday, but I didn't feel like really talking about video games with all that going on, But I do want to address it because this is actually kind of a big reason why I do this. Yeah, people have asked me, more so friends and family, things like, oh, why don't you do more, quote, real news stuff? I actually have a master's degree in journalism. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on here before. And no, I don't want to get into the state of news and media today, but video games are silly, fun things that mean little in the grand scheme of life, but I think the escape they offer is actually pretty important. The world is hard to deal with. It sucks sometimes. It sucks a lot of the time, actually. So I'm glad we have things like video games to take our minds off of it all. I'd rather us be here, taking console war jabs at each other instead of dwelling on this tragedy and, how it could have been prevented or anything like that. But I don't want to ramble too much about this. Essentially just my thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. And on that cheery note, let's talk some video games, shall we? Now, this is something I've been kicking around in my head for a while now, and I feel like it'd be a great discussion topic, and that's, would you be willing to pay more for games on the Nintendo Switch? So one of the reasons I've had this on my mind recently is that in a couple of days this Rime game is going to be released on the Xbox One, PS4, and PC, with the Switch version coming at a later date. And one of the reasons this game has come under some fire from Nintendo fans is that it was originally listed for $40 in the US, $10 more than it's listed for on other platforms. So yay, you can pay more to get the game after everyone else. Sounds awesome, right? Now, the digital price, at least for the game, has been brought down to $30 to reflect what it costs on other platforms, with the retail version remaining at $40. In defense of the original higher price point, the developers of Rime had cited the difficulties in getting the game running on the Switch, which, you could put as much stock into that as you want. It certainly doesn't seem to me like a game that would be very demanding of the system, but, I don't really know anything about game development, so you can think about that as you will. Maybe Rime will prove to be an awesome game, but in my mind right now it's another, deep emotional indie journey, which are basically a dime a dozen these days. But now, what if instead of Rime, we were talking about something like Overwatch, one of the most popular games in the shooter genre right now? Or I've got one from my own dream Nintendo Switch wish list. How about Kingdom Hearts 3? These are the kind of titles that I think would actually move the needle with some people in terms of the Nintendo Switch library. And with many of these major AAA third-party games, the likelihood of them winding up on the Switch is probably pretty minimal. But at the end of the day, money talks. There's never a better argument you can give to these video game devs and publishers than the possibility of making more money. So sure, a more graphically intensive game is going to be tough to get running on the Switch, no doubt about it. And some of these titles, like an Overwatch for instance, are taking quite a bit of a risk here. When you think of first-person shooters, you probably don't think about playing them on Nintendo platforms. So the audience might not even be there for them to make money off porting it over. But that's where an added incentive of a higher price tag could come in. If you're making more per game, let's say $80, then you don't have to sell as many units. Now sure, this is where Nintendo themselves should actually be stepping in and making deals to bring some of these games over, but they just don't seem very interested in putting much effort into third-party relations, as we've seen over the past multitude of years. Which is why I raise this question if the consumer would be willing to eat the cost to bring these games over. Now sure, in reality, there's a lot of issues with this. The most obvious being the higher price point itself. A higher price tag is never much of an incentive, especially in console gaming, where affordability is one of the major selling points. And of course, there's things like the greed of devs and publishers. You know, how long before everybody's pricing their games at the higher price point? You know, it makes me think back to the glory days actually of PC gaming. If you were playing on PC years ago, you probably remember that games were cheaper on the PC. And then I remember seeing like one of the Call of Duties pop up on Steam for $60, and that's when I knew the dream was dead. And now games typically launch at the same price on PC as consoles, even if they do get better discounts. I get all of that, but I'm trying to keep this focused on the consumer, what they want, and what they'd be willing to pay for it. So this is where I'd like to turn it over to you guys. Would you be willing to pay more to play games on the Switch, with the added portability, control options, etc. that it offers? And what is that worth to you? Also, what would be your breaking point? Like, is there a game that you'd be willing to pay, say, $100 to play on the Switch? Let me know in the comments. Because with that, this video is a wrap. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel now, and you can say you were a subscriber before it was cool. As always, I'm Zaccari, and thanks for watching.